Okay. Uh, Good morning, everybody. This is Lab 15 for Content 20. So this lab will just be a review for final exam. The professor's given us 3 questions, and me and Tyler will go over them for you guys. Um, if that's okay, I'll just start at question 1, and we'll just work our way down the list. So for question 1, he asks us that to define a class called square. So, so the important thing about square is its size, how wide and tall it is, and then we need to add a constructor for a class that takes the size and parameter. So to start off, I'll type in class square. And def in itself. Okay, so does anyone remember how to take in the size as a parameter and store that value as an instance of the class? So we want to take the constructor and pass in the size as parameter. Yep. So to pass in the size as parameter into a constructor, we can just put in the variable size. And to store that value as the instance of the class, we can do self.size equals size. So what's gonna happen is that when we create this square, we'll pass in a argument parameter size, and we'll save that within this object square. Okay. Next is that we want to add a method method draw that makes the text square. For example, for a square size of 3, it should look like this. You will have to review ideas of looping and printing to do this. So start with def draw self. Okay. So to start off, how should we, does anyone have any ideas of how to draw this square? So say if we have a size of 3, how would we use looping and printing to get this 3 by 3 square? Yeah. So my first idea to on how to draw this is to go from left to right. So say if I want, so to make this easier, let's say if I just want to draw this a size 2 square. So I'm trying to break this problem down to a small size. It's like, how do I get these two? Or if I want to make it even smaller, how do I even draw this this one star? If I want to draw this one star, I would just do print star, and that would give me the one star. But now, say if I want to draw a size 2, a square with size 2. So the way I think of how to draw a square is, I would go through, I would print each star in a line, kind of like this, and then once we after drawing this 2 by 2, then we go down to this row and draw these 2 squares. So so does anyone have any ideas about how to use looping to draw this 2 by 2 square, starting from the first row and then going to the second row? Okay. So so my idea so we can use looping to draw the rows and the columns. So wait. So let's say if I want to draw just the rows, and I want to draw the rows based on the size. Like say this is a size of 2, so I only want 2 stars just for the row. I could do something like for column in range self size, and then I would print a star. Oh, self dot size. Whoops. So if I run this code, no, I guess I should run this. So I need to create an object square. I'll call it S, and give it a size of 2. Then I can call the method using self.draw. And if I run the method, I'm getting, oh yeah. So what's happening is that each print will draw on a new line. So I want to get rid of the new line by doing n equals, let's try this. Oh. So now I got a row of 2. So we have this row of 2, and now we want to loop over and draw the second row. So thinking of how we're drawing this row, I first draw these 2, and then I first draw this row, and then I draw another row, and then another row, and then another row. It's this, if you can make the connection, it's the same kind of style as a loop, where we're looping between, hey, let's draw this first row, then the second, then this third, and we keep going until we stop at the size. So if I do for row in range self.size, and I put these in here. So what will happen is that it'll start off at row 0 and draw that row with this for loop, and then it'll go to the next row, row 1, and draw it'll draw the second row, and then so on. So if I run this code, oh wait, yeah, I need to print an extra line, so that way it knows that. So that way we move to the next line. And so there we go. So we have a 2 by 2 star. If I want to change the size, I can do 3. And if I want to make it big, I could do 5. And so on. So what's happening is that it'll start off at, once again, it'll start off at row 0, and then go to column 0, then column 1, then column 2, 3, and 4. And it'll repeat that until we reach the size, which is whatever we put in here. Okay. Yeah, and that is question 1. Does anyone have any questions about how that works? Okay. Okay, and then for question 2, I think Tyler's taking over. So here you go, Tyler. I'll stop sharing.
Okay, cool. Oops. Let me make sure I get myself a nice project to work in real fast. Okay, so project 2, we're working with PyQt again. Just like you guys have been working with for your cookie clicker class. So as we get started, does anybody have any questions about PyQt, about how it works? Maybe they're a little confused about just the process in general. We'd be happy to help you with any understanding that you guys are lacking there. Okay, cool. If at any time you guys have questions, just put it in the chat. So we'll be starting out with, we want to create a button. Oh my gosh. Okay, and the idea is this button is a frustrating button. So every couple milliseconds it turns off and then it turns back on, and the idea is you try and click as fast as you can to click the button and during the small window that it's enabled. So the first thing we need to do is create a button. So you can see we have this setup UI method, and remember this is where we want to put all of our UI elements like buttons. And then we also have this button clicked method that we need to connect to, okay? So who can help me create a button? You go ahead and put in the chat what you guys think code would be for creating a Q button that we can add to this class. So we can start with self.button equals, what would we put on the right side here? Does anybody have any idea how we could create a button? There we go. Yeah, that's good. So Q push button is the class that we're going to use. And so remember that this Q push button is calling the constructor of a button, right, that we can create, okay? And then in this case where we have self.button, who can tell me what self is? So who knows what this self is? I mean, it's okay to guess. If you're wrong, that's totally fine. It won't be held against you. Anyone watching the recording won't know either who it is, so that's fine. Yeah, so someone says it's accessing the class, right? So, so this self right here, okay, is the object that called this setup UI method, okay? And you can see this setup UI method is called inside init, all right? So down here in this code, when we have this, we're creating this application, and then we say this window equals frustrating button, okay? So our class is frustrating button. So when you say window equals frustrating button, this calls this init method, okay, right here, to create the object that is the frustrating button, okay? And then it calls super.init, okay? And this super is calling from what's called the super class, which is this Q main window, right? So remember, when you create a class and it inherits from another class, you put inside the parentheses of the class name. And so then it can get all of the different attributes of a main window, okay? And the code can treat it as if it's a main window as well as a frustrating button, okay? Then it's gonna call this self.setupUI, and this self in here is still this frustrating button that we create, okay? And when we do self.button equals QButton, what are we creating right there? Does anybody remember what the term is for this self.button equals? Someone says a signal, and that's not quite right. But I think we'll talk about signals in a second. So what do you call this? Usually when you have self.something equals, what are you creating right there? So this is what's called an instance variable, right? So we're giving the class a variable, an instance variable called button, okay? And so then this class, whenever you want, so even in this other method, you can do self.button, all right? And that would give us back the same button that we just created up here, okay? So that's what's called an instance variable. Does anyone have any questions about instance variables, how they work and what they do? Okay, just let us know if you do. This is something that's pretty important just for coding in general, and then also probably on the final you'll be asked about instance variables. So next thing we want to do is connect this button to this button clicked method. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to do self.button dot clicked, and then we're going to do dot connect. Okay, and then we'll do self.button clicked in here. Okay, so if we break that down, we have this self.button, okay, which is our instance variable. Then we're going to set its dot clicked variable, and we're going to set its connect equal to this function, okay? So that, or this method that is self.button clicked, okay? So that when you click the button, it's connected to this method call, and it calls this method right here, okay? And you can think of it as sending a signal, right? So when you click the button, it signals to run this code, okay? So the idea is that when you click your frustrating button, if you click it fast enough, then it will say you win and the app will close, okay? So now we need to start a timer. Or I guess, actually, what's the next thing we need to do so that we can make sure we see the button? So if we run this code right now, we're not going to see the button. And why don't we see the button? I don't know if you can see that actually. Calvin can see it. So yeah, I can't see it, but can you? Oh, you can see the window, right? But there's no button, right? Okay. So why are we missing a button? That's right. So we haven't added it to the layout, right? So we created the button, but then remember, whenever you do anything in PyQt, you have to add it to the layout. So we have this top layout, which is their QV box layout, and we just have to do top layout.add widget, okay? And then inside of there, we give it our self.button, okay? This one's also tricky. This is pretty easy to forget it, and then you run your code and you have no idea why it doesn't work. Okay, so we got our button. If we click on it, then it goes away, and it says we win. Okay, so that's also one of those things you should just remember. Make sure you do on the final. If it ever asks about how to do something about PyQt, make sure you add things to the layout, because if you don't, then you're not going to see anything. Okay, so now the next thing we need to do is we want to add a timer to the button that turns it on and off. Okay, so first we will create a method. So we can do def, we'll call it update button. And in here we can put self, okay? And we want to do two things, right? So if the button is enabled, meaning you can click on it, then we want to disable the button. Otherwise, we will enable the button, okay? So that it turns on and off and off and on, okay? So I want you guys to Google PyQt how to find out if a button is enabled. Or if you know, you can just chat the answer to me. But let's see if you guys can figure this out. And then tell me what to write in this condition right here. Okay, so we have an if and we have an else. But what goes right here? Yeah, excellent. So someone says, or Kira says, Q push button is enabled. So in our case, our Q push button is our self.button. Remember, because this is our instance variable that we can access now anywhere we have a method class. And then we just have this simple is enabled method that the button has. And so when you call that, it will return either true or false depending on if the button's enabled. So if the button is enabled, then we want to disable it. Okay. And the way we do that is just do self.button set disabled. Okay. We want to set that to true. Okay. So that will disable the button. And in this else, then we'll do the opposite, right? We'll do self.button.set disabled equal to false. Okay, so this will just turn the button on and off depending on if it's enabled or not. So then the next thing we need to do is create a timer. So hopefully this is becoming pretty familiar. We're going to do self.timer to create an instance variable that's a timer. we'll set this equal to a queue timer, right, to create it. And then how do we connect this to this method that's update button, so that every 100 milliseconds it will call this update button method. Okay, so we got self.timer dot clicked dot connect self dot update button. Okay, so this is really close, really close. But there's one problem with it. Does it seem right that a timer would have a clicked method or a clipped property? So there's not exactly a UI element for the timer that we can click on, right? But it's really close. So timers have something that's a little bit different. So buttons, you can set, they're clicked to connect something. The timer has something else. Does anyone remember what it's called? Timeout. There we go. Yeah. So we're going to put timeout right here. Okay. Make sure you don't put any parentheses in here except for this around this connect. Okay. So what this does is it tells the timer that when the timeout runs out, that we call this update button. Okay. And then the last thing we want to do is we need to start the timer. So to do that, we just do self.timer.start. And we tell it how long we want in milliseconds. So we do 100. Okay, so now let's try it out. If we run our code, you can see that this button now is flashing. And the idea is that it's supposed to be really hard to click it. You have to click pretty fast for it to work. Okay. Does anybody have any questions about PyQt, about how that works? About instance variables, classes, init methods? These all be big topics on the final. So. Okay, perfect. Calvin is going to take over now, and he's going to show you about question 3.
Okay, thank you, Tyler. Share screen. Okay, so question 3 is about our good old friend, the turtle module. It's been a while since we've seen this, but I'm pretty sure that most of us have worked with this in the past. This problem is mainly focused about how to make a class and import from a superclass. So start off, I have class myTurtle, and I'm importing the turtle from the superclass. So what's happening is that this myTurtle is looking at, hey, let's look at this turtle module and import all the methods from it. So looking at the instructions, it wants us to make a class that inherits from turtle.turtle and add an init method with no parameters that initializes a myTurtle. So def in itself. And so this is an important part for inheritances. Does anyone remember how to initialize myTurtle?
Can I say?
Yeah.
Isn't it the super parentheses dot init, and then whatever the
Yeah.
parameters you want that you want to call from the turtle, and then any other additional parameters?
Yep. Exactly. So nice job. So for this one, I don't think till needs any parameters. So just having this super parentheses dot init parentheses is good enough. But yeah, that's absolutely correct. So so this will create the my turtle, and it'll initialize it with the super class with all this stuff here. Looking at the next part of the instruction is now we want to override the turtle dot forward method to make a dashed line instead of a solid line. So before I get to the tips, let me just do forward self distance. So so the professor gives us some hints of how to do this. One is that we'll need a variable to track if the pen is up or down. Two, we will need to use the turtle forward method to actually move forward. And three, we need to break the distance to move into small steps and change the pen up or down each step. Don't worry about making this exactly right. So he gives us a hint about trying to imagine drawing dashed lines by hand and think of the process of drawing a dashed line. So looking at, so imagining just like if I had a pen, I have a pen right now in my hand, and so in Turtle we have a variable that's we can make the pen go up or down depending on where it goes. If the pen is down, we'll draw a line. If the pen's up, we won't. The pen will still keep moving, but we won't draw any line, or no line will appear in the window. So if I'm drawing with this, with this pen in my hand, if I'm drawing something real, actually let me make this easier. Say if I have a pen right here, and I want to draw something. So if the pen is down, we'll have this line here. But if I want to make a dash line, I have to move the pen off the paper or move it up in this case. And then when I want to put it back down, if I want to draw again, I put it back down, put it up, put it down, put it up, and put it down. So does anyone remember and so we can use a variable as he suggested to track if the pen is up or down. So I'll use a variable like pen down, because if we want to start off with the pen drawing, and then move it up, then move it back down, then move it up and back down. However, just saying this variable isn't enough because this is just tracking if it is up or down. Does anyone remember from the Turtle module how to actually move the pen down within the code? Or to start off, how do I call methods from this Turtle? Isn't there a method? Yeah. Okay, yeah, that's exactly right. Someone said there's a method pen down and pen up. So there are methods. Yeah. So this is right with pen method. Yep. Sorry about that, guys. It looks like the Zoom time limit was met. Oh, that's weird. I thought they. Oh yeah. So sorry about that, guys. Apparently Zoom had a 40-minute time limit. I thought they were supposed to remove that. Oh well. But yeah. Let me just wait a couple of seconds for people to get back in here. Okay. Looks like Tyler. Okay. I think that's everyone. Just missed Tyler. Okay. But yeah. Sorry about that, everyone. So. Okay. Recording's still good. Okay. Okay. Sharing screen. Okay, but yeah, as said before, there are methods pen down and pen up. So we want to start if the pen down is true, we want to start with the pen down in Turtle. So we're getting an error right here Does anyone remember how to call methods from a superclass? What's the So how do we call this pen down here? Yep. Yep. So exactly, self dot pen down. So if we want to, so using self dot pen down, we can call pen down from the turtle module, the superclass. So the important thing about this this problem is to know like how to operate with superclasses. And so now we have self dot pen down. So that means that when we start drawing, the pen will be down. I'm gonna so I'm gonna go pedal back to describe what forward is about. Sorry. So forward is at least for the turtle method is that we're gonna. Oh, I guess I have it right here, but forward moves the turtle forward by the specified distance in the direction the turtle is headed. So if turtle has if the forward had a distance of 4, it would draw forward by 4, the distance of forward. So looking at what we so right now we want to move the pen by that distance, and he says here in the second tip that you will want to use the turtle forward method to actually move forward. So looking at this problem right now, as of right now, I'm having trouble oh, how do I draw the distance into bringing up? So I want to move to something that I can do. This is a good problem solving skill. Is like you can't solve something immediately. Don't take too long on it. Switch back to another problem or a different part of a problem you can solve, and see if you can solve that one. So right now, I know that I want to switch the pen up and down depending on my variable. So like going back to my drawing. So if the pen is down and I'm drawing this line, and I want to remove the pen, and so I'm still holding down the mouse button. My pen is still on the paper. How do I know? I guess my question is, when should I switch to the blank line? When should I take my pen off the paper? It's very hard making this analogy on the computer without drawing, but yeah. Actually, yeah. So let me reiterate that. So in terms of to switch between pen down and pen up, we have this point where the pen is down, where pen, I'll just call it PD equals true. And then we have to switch it to false. And then after the line is finished, we switch from true to false. And it's the same case for this, the end of this pen up line, is that when PD is false, then we switch back to true, but only at the end of each line. So what I want to do is that so looking at this part, I know it's like, hey, this is like an if condition. If this is true, then switch it to false. If this is false, switch it to true. So it's only part of the problem, or it's only solving part of the problem, but it's good to solve the problem step by step and pieces by pieces, so that way you don't get overwhelmed by the whole thing. So if pen is down, if the pen is down, we reach the end of the line, we want to move it up. So self dot pen up. pen down equals false. Else, that means if the pen is up, we want to move the pen, pen down. So we want to put the pen down and then set pen down. Logo pen. Okay. So that's the main part. Now the harder part is drawing. Okay. So the hard part now will be drawing the actual line. So I want to make this easier on my so looking at the advice, he wants us to use the superclass till forward method to actually move forward. So does anyone remember how to call a method from a superclass? So how should I describe? So what's happening is that we don't want to call the forward method from our class, which so self.pen down, since my till is inheriting from till, it has all the pen down, which we could call from self. But what's the problem in calling self dot forward here? Anyone have any ideas? So tying back to what Tyler said earlier, what is the self referring to? Yeah, the object of the total class. So what's happening is that when we do the self.forward, it's gonna look in this my total class and look for a method called .forward. The problem is that we already made we need to override the forward method. And if we do self.forward, we'll call this forward method again. So what's happening is that we're calling our own forward method instead of the superclass that we want. And in terms of why self.pen down is working without like us declaring def pen down, is because since we're importing the pen down method and adding it to this my total object, so we're able to call self.pen down even though we haven't created the method. These def forward is more of just overriding the current methods rather than making new ones. But so to call the forward method from the superclass, we can do so similar to the super init, we can do super.forward, and we need a distance. I'll do 4, and then this will call the forward method. They'll call the total forward method and add it into forward. So let's see. So let me see if I can run this for a second. Oh wait, yeah, I had to make a till object. Window equals screen. Oh yeah, does anyone have any questions about how this forward method works? Sorry, got cut off in the middle of my explanation. Never mind. Okay, let's see. Oh yeah, window exon. Yep. So it's not actually moving. because it's not because there's still something missing from the method. So looking at it right now, we haven't used this distance yet, and this is the tricky. I think this is probably the trickiest part of how to do this draw method. Is that going back to this drawing? Is that say we want to draw lines of 4. Let me clear this. So say these lines are like size of 4. I can't draw them all the same, but say they're all the same size. So we're given a distance, and this distance is the total amount of distance. So say this distance is from here to here. So like say this is distance 100. So now if we want to draw, say if the line is size 4, we want to draw about 25 of these marked lines. Oh, well, no, 4 divided by 25. Oh yeah, no, because it's alternating. So we'll want to draw about. So we'll have 25 lines, both visible and invisible, until we get to the distance 100. So we'll have 25 of these marked lines. So it's not specifying the instructions about what we need. Oh, so yeah, he has it here. So so he doesn't say what size the dash line should be. So to make it easier, I'm gonna say it's 4, and I'm also gonna save it to a variable. Just saving to a variable in the saving as a class variable makes it easier to call later within the class. So I can do dash size equals 4. And so now instead of just using 4 everywhere I call this 4 method, I can use dash size or self dot. There you go. So now this will move forward by self dot dash size 4. However, we still want to traverse the total distance of whatever is passed into this. In this case, it's 100. So what we can see here is that since we have a size length 4, we can do the distance divide by 4 and get 25 lines. And so looking at how we draw these lines, it's similar to a loop structure where we keep looping in until a certain amount. So in this case, we repeat the drawing 25 times, up, down, up, down, up, down. So in this section of code, I want to do something like for number in range 0, distance divided by I think it would be my total dash that. And then okay. So what's happening is that now we have a loop that repeats the draw method. So what happens is that we'll call this about 20. Yeah, we'll call this 25 times, and super.for will draw 25 lines. So running the code. Oh man, that is really small. Let's see. Can everyone see that just fine? Man, that's really small. Maybe if I can make the line. Okay, yeah. Let me make the line bigger. So yeah, so one good thing about making this available is I can change it just right here and not have to change it throughout the code. Okay, that looks better. Let me increase the distance. Like try. Okay, yeah. Okay, so to describe what's happening with the code is that we're creating the total class, we're passing a distance of 300, so that's how much distance it should travel. of the like overall line before it stops. And we're gonna to make mark dash lines, we want to switch off after every line, whether it depends on the paper or off the paper. So when we reach we draw. So say if it's our first line, we draw the first line, and if the pen is down, we move it up. If the pen is if the pen is up, we put it back down to signify like, hey, we're drawing another line. Move the pen up or down. So in a way, these like the lack of lines are kind of like a line in itself, where it's like, hey, but they're just not visible. So this line is one loop. This line is another loop. This one's the second one, and so on. And that's kind of how, and that's the way you can draw these marked lines. But yeah, does anyone have any questions about this or how it works? Okay. So this concludes all the example problems in this lab. If you guys have any, does anyone have any other questions about anything in the class, the final exam, or just logistics that me and Tyler can answer before I stop the recording? How is the final going to be structured? Tyler, do you want to answer this? Let's see, let me check with Tyler Celia.
Yeah, I think the final will be pretty similar to the way the second midterm was. That's what I recall. Do you remember, Calvin? There's any more specific details?
I can go check right now to see if there's any specific details, but not the top of my head. I think it's gonna be similar to midterm too.
And it will be comprehensive, so you know everything we've learned throughout the semester.
2 questions.
Oh yeah. What question?
When will the final probably be on? Like what day will it probably be?
It'll be the whatever is specified for the final, like, as far as the U goes. So if you search for the exam schedule for finals, the U has a list for all of them. I can look that up for you right now, but I remember off the top of my head what it is.
All right, and then while you're looking that up, I have another question. Will the PYQT game be extended like the other assignments?
Because it's the last assignment due, I would expect not.
Okay, good to know.
So this class is usually on what days again?
I don't remember. It's been a while.
Tuesdays and Thursdays at 2 o'clock to 3 o'clock.
Tuesday, Thursday, 2 o'clock to 3 o'clock. Okay, so the final will be on Friday, April 24th from 1 to 3. And so that's, yeah, just keep your eye on Piazza. I would imagine that there might be like a little bit of leeway on starting time, but that's good, about exactly when it's going to be.
Cool.
Okay.
Thanks.
Yep. Anyone have any more questions? Okay. And so my final advice is that David Johnson did post some topics for the final review, so you can go. I think it's in module week 15. So if you guys want to have topics final exam topics, you guys want to view any of the topics, you can go over them and study on your own or with friends. Yep.
Also, next week we will still have office hours on Monday and Tuesday, but after that, we will not be holding office hours.
Yeah. Classes officially end Tuesday.
So if you have questions, make sure you ask them by Tuesday.
Will we still be monitoring Piazza? I'm pretty sure.
Piazza for sure.
Yeah, we'll still be monitoring Piazza after. So if you guys can't make it Monday or Tuesday, we can still answer online questions. Okay. Let's see. Any more questions? Okay. That concludes today's Lab 15. If you guys have any questions for after lab, you can stay in and talk to me, Tyler. But yeah, thank you and have a good weekend, guys.